Hey guys, it's Rick from Untitled. Welcome to another video. In case you're wondering, this is not part 10 of the Let's Build a Plane series, but that is happening behind the scenes and that video should be out shortly, so look out for it. Today I'm actually going to talk to you about a chuck glider. It's another little experimental plane I've been working on, something to keep me going on the side and something to change the momentum for a while. So basically what I did is I took an ordinary chuck glider and I turned it into a remote control motor glider. Now, a funny thing happened on the way to the park. I had everything ready to go, I switched everything on, I pressed play on the camera, I launched, and after the landing, if you can call it a landing, I realized all I really did was all I really did was take a photo. So I've got no flight footage to show you, unfortunately. When you see the end of this video, you'll understand why I can't show you any flight footage for the time being. So stay tuned, it's coming up next. Hey guys, this is one of my latest experimentations. It's a chuck glider. I got it for about $20 off eBay, and I decided to turn it into an RC glider plane. So the wings, or the main wings, come apart. They're just held together with a carbon wing spar. They're a bit on the flexible side, so there's nothing fancy there. Everything else is glued in position. So what I've done is simply cut out the aileron section, as you can see, and I've used packing tape for the hinge mechanism. The aileron used to look like that. See that outline? And all I did was cut that outline over here, one on each side, as you can see. Now I'm using just your simple everyday plastic gear 9-gram servos, don't need anything special. And I made the push rods out of paperclip wire, believe it or not. I didn't have anything else at the time, and I didn't want to wait, so I just tried to improvise. And since this is simply an experiment and these do work, I'll show you in a moment, I thought I don't need to go anything fancy. I'll just show you the back section. So I've got a 9-gram plastic gear servo there for the elevator, and another one for the rudder. Now I had to cut out each of those control surfaces, as you can see, and I used packing tape on each of the control surfaces for the hinge mechanism. And I also put the decals on as well, just to give it some extra character, extra colour. That's my electrician's tape, that red section. I'm holding down the servo wires and the extension leads for everything. Now I hot glued those servos into place here, and on second thoughts I probably didn't need to go that far, because for the aileron servos I actually used double-sided Scotch tape. Now I had those underneath at one stage, you can probably see the mark, but I found that they scraped the ground too much, too quickly, too easily, so I decided to put them up top. On both sides. Now initially, when I first purchased this glider, it came with a canopy, like so. So that used to be there. And what I decided to do is cut that section off because I was going to need that space here to install all the electronics. Now, ironically, if you're to purchase this glider again now, it's actually made for the installation of all these things. So in this section here, the piece actually comes off and there's a cavity inside here, and you can put all this inside and hide everything nicely. There's even cavities for the aileron servos and so on. But anyway, I digress. With this particular one, I cut this off, like I said, and look what we have underneath. There's some additional ballast here in the form of 2 metal balls. Now these balls actually weigh about 22 grams a piece, which I will show you. So that's 0, and we just have a look at this. All right, it's got a bit of weight, so if I put that there, that's 22 grams. So all up, there's 44 extra grams of weight at the front before I took that section off. So if I put both of these here, including the foam piece, that's about 50 grams of weight, which I've just taken off the front section. So you might think this thing's tail heavy now, but it actually isn't. See, I weighed this battery, which I'll show you in a moment. This battery alone, it's a 2S. It weighs about 92 grams. So I took away 50 and I added 92 grams. Now the interesting part is, or the interesting point, I haven't added I haven't added this battery, which weighs double the ballast that I took off. I haven't added it here. Otherwise this plane would have been nose heavy. So by actually positioning it back on the taper angle here and putting the receiver in this section here, my CG is actually spot on now, and that includes having the motor on the front. Now this motor, by the way, I'll give you a bit of a close-up here. I decided to buy a cheap motor. I didn't need anything fancy. It's a 22 12 6T 2200 kilovolt motor. Comes with the prop. You get actually 2 props, the spinner, the collar, everything, even a motor mount. And by the way, that included the 30 amp ESC, which I've got right there, as you can see, embedded into the foam. I've got double-sided Scotch tape inside there, plus some additional electrician's tape holding it on the outside. Now, I decided to chop the nose off the fuselage. There was a nice dome, if you like, of a cone here, which was part of the foam design of this plane. And I decided to chop it off there so that I could put my own motor mount with the motor in front. And what I simply did was make my own motor mount using 1mm flat aluminium bar, bent it to shape, attached it with double-sided Scotch tape, which you can probably just make out, that grey section there. Attach the motor, and Bob's your uncle. It's ready to go. I even included, I think you can see that there, about a few degrees of down thrust. since this is a high wing plane. And I'll show you how all this works after, because it is ready to go. I'll be able to show you the maiden, and I can hardly wait. This is going to be either the maiden flight or the maiden crash. I have no idea, but I intend on having a lot of fun with it. I just wanted to see how this would work by turning a simple chuck glider into an RC motor glider. So it's 4 channels. I probably won't need to have it on full throttle all the time. It'll probably glide nicely. And I will show you now the CG, because the CG, the way I planned it, is perfect. Now, before I do that, I'll just quickly show you the radio I'm using. Nothing special again. Turnigy 6-channel. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this. Got it from Hobby King. I'm a mode 1 flyer, as you can see. My throttle is on the right. It will always be on the right. That's how I learned to fly many, many years ago. And I'm about to show you the CG now. So hold on. I'm about to pick up the plane, and I'm going to show you exactly how this baby balances. Now, I've got carbon spar going through the wing on this side, and I've got a carbon spar going through the wing on the other side. So there you have it. There's carbon spar going right through the wing. Now both these wing halves come off, one this way, one the other way, and there's a carbon spar which you feed inside here, and that's what's holding this wing together. Now, as I said, it's rather flexible. It's not exactly a tight, firm connection, but the whole plane only weighs 455 grams, so that's fully laden as is. So it should be okay. I'm not planning on doing any power loops or power rolls. I just want to see this thing fly under power, and it's a great throw around, muck around plane. Bit of an experimentation for me, but we're going to see how she goes. Now I'll just show you the CG. So I'm putting my hands right under there where the spar is on both sides, and have a look at this. Have a look at that. It's not tail heavy by any stretch of the imagination. See that? She's sitting there nicely. A tad nose down, but generally level, exactly the way I want it. Now, if I find I need to trim it because it is a bit on the tail heavy side, I'll do so. But I think right now, it's a great starting point. So I'm going to take this down to the field, and we're going to see how this baby flies. Stay tuned. Okay, before we go down to the field, I'll just quickly hook everything up here and I'll show you how it all hangs together. So I've switched everything on. I'm putting the transmitter on, put my safety on, connect the battery. ESC has made all the right noises. Okay, so at the moment I've got my safety on. So if I lift throttle, nothing happens. Safety comes first. Now, watch the ailerons. Moving nicely. I've got expo and dual rates here as well. Elevator at the back, rudder, all ready to go. Now, if I switch on and activate the motor, now I raise the throttle, there you have it. Working nicely. Put the safety back on, disable the throttle hold, or enable the throttle hold. and I'm safe as houses once again. That's it. We're going to get out in the park and we're going to see how this baby flies. Okay guys, I had this up in the air for a couple of minutes and it was basically uncontrollable. The elevator authority was very weak, the aileron authority was very weak. It always banked uncontrollably, dipped uncontrollably. First maiden, it nosedived straight into the ground. As you can see, I got a broken prop. But because of the setup I've got here with the gift card and the aluminium motor mount, it survived. So all that's working beautifully. Now, what I also did was try to improve the elevator, aileron and rudder authority. So this is what I did, because it was just too sluggish. I'll just come back and give you an overall view of what we've got here. As ridiculous as it looks, and as ridiculous as it seems, I've simply tacked on some gift cards to extend the width and depth of the ailerons. Couple on each side, just taped them in position. I needed greater aileron authority, so that's what I did. Same with the elevator. Gift card on each side. I needed more elevator authority, and one for the rudder. Now all this worked except for one thing. This plane doesn't fly very well, or my flying skills aren't the best. I mean, admittedly I've been flying helis for the past few years and I haven't been taking up the planes like I used to, but I'm going to have to reassess how to make this thing fly, and I'll show you why. With the first maiden, I tell you now, it absolutely nosedived into the ground. So if you'll remember where I showed you how the CG was perfect, I placed my fingers under the wing spar and it was balancing beautifully. Well, the CG is not perfect. And unless you know where the center of lift is, the CG test by placing your fingers under the wing spar is quite irrelevant and inaccurate. So what I did was I held the model up in the air and I just let it fall. And I watched how much the nose would drop or dip on the way down. And then I'd catch it, of course. So I kept shifting the battery weight further behind the fuselage and further behind the wings, as you can see. Used to be here, if you'll remember. Now I've shifted it all the way back here, and it makes all the difference. So while it was flying and while it was gliding, it maintained a nice heading. It didn't dip when I took the power off. But what I found was it just had too much, I don't know how to describe it. It didn't matter what I did, aileron, elevator, it was just uncontrollable in flight for my liking. Not even a good trainer. So much so that I'm about to show you what happened. Hold on. This, my friends, is the result of what happens when it finally nosed into the ground, head first. It got into a tip stall, I don't know if you call it that. I was turning and it just decided to do whatever it wanted to do. And I guess the foam nose can only take so much. So as you can see, the front section there is still holding up beautifully, but the poor thing had to give way in this section. And this section. So I'm going to see if I can fix it and keep this as my experimental. I'm determined to make this fly if I think it's worthwhile continuing with that effort. But thank God it's only foam, and thank God it's only a cheap chuck glider. Everything else still works beautifully. There's nothing wrong with the servos, front and back. I'm definitely not happy with the elevator and rudder authority, so I'm going to have to look at improving that somehow. But that's the result of my maiden. Yeah. So anyway, chuck gliders. Yeah, this is almost something I'd rather chuck in the bin, but I'll see what I can do with it. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll let you know how I go and with what I do with it. See you all next time.